Hi, I'm Taryn. My parents told everyone I was too busy to come to their anniversary. Truth is, they never invited me. They said I'd embarrass them. Imagine that your own family, erasing you like a typo. So I stayed quiet. Let them toast their perfect picture, their flawless little lie. But that night, while they smiled for the cameras, every screen in the room lit up. With my face. My billion-dollar deal. Their silence finally had an audience. And now I wonder, was I ever the one who should have been ashamed? It was one of those gray Seattle mornings where the sky pressed down, heavy and tired. The kind of morning that made even coffee feel slow. I stood by the kitchen window, watching the mist thread between the buildings, my mug warming my hands. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound. My routine was simple: coffee, email, calendar check, pretend calm. Life had become a quiet loop, and I was fine with that. Or I told myself I was. I went through the usual motions: open laptop, check notifications, scan through a few work messages. My startup was mid-negotiation on something big, something that could change my life, but the house was silent, and silence had a way of dulling victory. Out of habit, I checked the mailbox downstairs. Bills. Ads. No envelope with the familiar gold print my mother loved to use. Their anniversary was coming up. The 60th, a big one. I ran my finger through the stack twice, pretending maybe I missed it. Nothing. I laughed under my breath. Maybe it got lost in the mail. Maybe they forgot to send it. But the small sting under my ribs told me it wasn't a mistake. I tucked the pile under my arm, walked back upstairs, and told myself it didn't matter. It always started that way, pretending it didn't matter. When I sat back at my desk, I opened the family group chat. It was buzzing with excitement. My sister, Isolde, had sent a long message full of exclamation points and heart emojis. Can't wait to see everyone Saturday. Mom and Dad are over the moon. My brother Callum replied right away, promising to bring his famous bourbon cake. My aunt posted a line of smiley faces. I scrolled through the thread, eyes moving too fast, looking for my name. Nothing. No one tagged me. No one asked if I was coming. When Aunt Marla chimed in, we figured Taryn's probably busy with whatever it is she does. The chat filled with polite laughter emojis. That was the thing with my family, even their cruelty wore a polite tone. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. It wasn't just being left out, it was being invisible by design. I could almost hear my sister's voice in my head, light and condescending. You wouldn't enjoy it anyway, Taryn. These events are social. As if I wasn't human enough to show up. The phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen. For a second, I thought maybe she'd realized. Maybe this was the apology. I picked up, forcing my tone steady. Hi, Mom. Hi, sweetheart, she said in that soft, rehearsed way she used when she wanted to ease into bad news. I just wanted to talk about Saturday. I waited. Well, she continued, we decided not to send you an invitation this year. It's not that we didn't want you there, it's just this one's a bit more formal. We'll have some of your father's colleagues, old business partners. You understand, right? There it was. Polished rejection wrapped in manners. Of course, I said, my voice even. I understand. She sounded relieved. Good. You know how people talk. They'll ask questions, about your work, your personal life, and you know how they compare their kids. I just don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. That word hung in the air like a stain. After she hung up, I sat for a while staring at my reflection in the laptop screen. I looked calm, but something inside me was unraveling slowly, quietly. I didn't understand. Not really. But I'd learned to act like I did. In this family, silence kept you safe. My mind drifted backward. Growing up, I was the youngest of three, the quirky one. Isolde was the beauty, always perfect posture, perfect smile, valedictorian. Callum was the golden boy, football captain turned real estate star. And me? I was the quiet kid who spent weekends coding in the garage, taking apart computers, building things no one understood. I remembered a barbecue when I was 16. Dad had his arm around Callum, bragging about his new internship. Someone asked about me. Dad chuckled and said, "Oh, Taryn's just figuring things out still." Everyone laughed. I did too, pretending it didn't cut deep. That sentence clung to me for years, just figuring things out. As if I were permanently unfinished. But I had built something. Over 7 years, from my small apartment, I'd grown a software company from nothing. A data analytics platform that now handled contracts with major corporations. We were days away from finalizing an acquisition that would put us on the national map. My small, whatever it is you do, had turned into a multimillion-dollar deal. No one in my family ever asked about it. They thought working from home meant I was drifting. My father once joked, "You should meet people, Taryn. You'll forget how to talk." He never realized I spoke fluently in numbers, code, and contracts, just not his language of golf and investments. The rain grew heavier, a rhythmic tap against the window. Evening crept in without me noticing. I ordered takeout, ate in silence, and cleaned up mechanically. Around 8, I stepped out onto the balcony. The city shimmered under the drizzle, the Space Needle glowing faintly through fog. I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop again. There it was, the press release. Finalized, waiting for authorization. My name at the top, founder and CEO, Polaris Analytics. I had been quiet for years, but this silence wasn't surrender anymore. It was timing. I set the release to go live at 8 p.m. Saturday. The same time as their anniversary dinner. I stared at the blinking cursor before clicking enter. Schedule confirmed. The air outside smelled like rain and electricity. I leaned back in my chair and whispered to no one, they didn't want people to ask about me. Let's see how many ask now. Inside, the apartment was dim, only the city lights flickering across the glass table. I thought about how easy it had become for them to forget me, how carefully they'd learned to speak around my name. But I wasn't the lost one anymore. I was just patient. Tomorrow, I'd wake up, make coffee, and work like nothing had happened. The world would keep spinning. But somewhere beneath that still surface, something had shifted. The girl who used to stay quiet had finally learned what silence could do when used right. I closed the laptop, the rain steady and endless outside, and felt a strange calm settle over me. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel erased, I felt ready. The rain had stopped sometime during the night, leaving the air damp and heavy. By morning, the city was bathed in that cold, silvery light Seattle gets after a storm. I sat on the balcony again, the same place where I'd scheduled the press release the night before, only now the glass of wine had been replaced with lukewarm coffee. My reflection in the sliding door looked calm, collected. But inside, the quiet felt heavier than it used to. I wasn't always this composed. It took years to turn hurt into silence, silence into something that almost felt like control. Even now, the ache wasn't gone, it had just learned to stay quiet, like an old injury that flared up when the weather changed. As I scrolled through unread emails, my eyes caught one from a courier service. A small detail, but it made my stomach twist. It reminded me of something I'd spent years trying to file away, my 29th birthday. That year, I'd mailed a package to my parents' house. It wasn't extravagant, just a framed black and white photo of the 5 of us from when I was 6, taken at a park near our old home. In the picture, I was standing slightly apart from everyone, holding a melting ice cream cone. I'd written a note on the back, for the hallway. Maybe it's time to bring this memory back. 2 weeks later, the box came back. Same address, same tape. Unopened. No note, no explanation. At first, I told myself it must have been a mistake. A mix-up. But the shipping label had my mother's handwriting on it, the careful, perfect cursive she used when she wanted to seem polite. That day, I didn't cry. I just set the box in the back of my closet, still sealed. Sometimes, when I couldn't sleep, I'd catch sight of it in the dark, like a shadow that refused to leave. A year after that, I drove out to the family house on a whim. No invitation, no warning. I just wanted to see them, to see if I still belonged anywhere in those walls. The drive took 3 hours, and by the time I arrived, the air was heavy with summer heat. Mom opened the door, startled. "Taryn? Oh, this is a surprise." Her tone made it clear surprises weren't welcome here. I stepped inside anyway. The place smelled the same, lemon polish, expensive candles, and something faintly artificial. The hallway used to be covered in family photos. Vacations, graduations, holidays. But as I walked through, something felt wrong. My picture, the one from my college graduation, where Dad had stood beside me in his gray suit, it wasn't there anymore. New frames lined the wall. Isolde's wedding, her husband's yacht. Callum's beach house opening. Mom at some charity gala, holding a crystal award. All recent. All polished. All perfect. Where's the old photo? I asked, my voice softer than I intended. Dad appeared from the living room, wearing his usual Sunday sweater, holding a drink even though it was barely noon. We needed space for updated ones, he said quickly, as if it were a reasonable explanation. So I became outdated? He hesitated, eyes darting to Mom, then back to me. Don't take it personally, sweetheart. We just wanted something fresh. Fresh. Like I was stale bread. I nodded, pretending to understand. Sure. Makes sense. They looked relieved that I wasn't going to push. But what they didn't realize was that a seed had been planted, a quiet, steady awareness that something had shifted forever. Weeks later, my Aunt Lucinda invited me for coffee. She was the only one in the family who seemed to genuinely care. Her small house smelled like cinnamon and old paperbacks. She handed me a mug and said, I don't know if I should say this, but I think you deserve to know. I braced myself. They talk about you, you know. At family dinners. She stirred her coffee slowly, eyes avoiding mine. Your mom and Isolde, mostly. They call you the reclusive one. The odd bird. Odd bird, I repeated, smiling faintly. That's creative. They don't mean it cruelly, she said quickly, guilt coloring her face. It's just they don't understand you. You don't fit their mold. And your mom, well, she once asked me to discourage you from showing up unexpectedly to events. She said it might make things awkward. My hand tightened around the mug. Awkward for who? She looked down. For them. I laughed softly, because it was either that or break something. Thanks for telling me. Lucinda reached across the table, covering my hand with hers. It's not that they don't love you, she whispered. They just don't know how to explain you. That line sat between us like a bad smell. I smiled again, but something inside me hardened. I filed every word away, not out of anger but because information is power. Back home that evening, I checked the family group chat again. Isolde had posted photos of centerpiece options for the anniversary dinner, crystal vases, orchids, floating candles. Mom replied with heart emojis. As long as everyone's there, it'll be perfect. I stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. I typed, everyone? Then deleted it before I could send. Seconds later, a private message popped up from Aunt Lucinda. I saw that. You don't deserve this, Taryn. I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. She meant well, but sympathy was a currency I'd stopped accepting. It was around midnight when I finally put my phone down. The city outside had quieted, just the faint hum of traffic far below. I walked to my office, a narrow space lined with white boards and server racks. The glow from my monitors painted the walls in cold light. For a long time, I stared at the code running on the screen, lines of logic, perfect and emotionless. It hit me then, my family hadn't forgotten me, they'd rewritten me out of their story. Like a bad edit in a film. Cropped, erased, and left on the cutting room floor. And that realization didn't make me angry. It made me clear. They weren't villains, they were small. Too small to see beyond the world they'd built for themselves. My phone buzzed, a message from my lawyer confirming the final terms of the acquisition. Another from my CFO, asking to schedule the final press briefing. I typed back, Saturday 8 p.m. confirmed. When I closed the laptop, I didn't feel the usual exhaustion. Just stillness. Precision. A few minutes later, my assistant texted, investor wants to confirm media window. Still good for Saturday? I smiled at the screen. Yes. Make sure it hits while the party's happening. I got up, poured myself another glass of wine, and walked over to the shelf where that unopened birthday package still sat. I pulled it out, peeled off the old tape, and opened the lid. The frame inside was exactly as I'd left it, black and white, faded around the edges, but still whole. My younger self looked straight into the camera, a defiant little smirk on her face. That expression I used to hate, it finally made sense. She wasn't shy, she was waiting. I set the photo on my desk. My reflection in the glass met hers. Sometimes it's not what they say, but what they erase, that hurts the most. The black and white photo sat on my desk like a silent witness, catching the soft edge of lamplight. It wasn't remarkable at first glance, a simple candid from a summer picnic, maybe a decade ago. But the girl in the middle, squinting at the sun with a book half open in her lap, was me. Proof. Proof I had existed there, among them, before the great edit began. I blinked against the sting behind my eyes and closed the cover, sliding the photograph back into the drawer beside my keyboard. The room fell quiet again. Outside, tires whispered along wet pavement, and inside, I could hear the steady beat of my pulse, like a warning, like a countdown. I leaned forward, fingers hovering above my keyboard, heart sluggish with dread. My inbox was already open, subject line stacked neatly in unread rows. I spotted it immediately. Updating the family slideshow, help requested. From Mom. Of course. The sender list included all the usual names: Dad, Vera, Isolde, Uncle Callum, Aunt Louise, even Cousin Milo's wife. I was copied in. On paper, I still existed. But something inside me said this wasn't an invitation. It was a formality. A cover. A digital version of leaving the door unlocked but hoping no one walks in. Still, I clicked. The email was short and bright, coded in polite detachment. Hi all. As we prepare for the anniversary dinner, I'm updating our slideshow. If you have better photos or edits, please upload them by Friday morning. Keeping things streamlined and elegant. Mom. An attachment followed. I downloaded the folder labeled Anniversary Slideshow. It contained image after image, vacations, birthdays, graduations, family barbecues. But as I clicked through the photos, my stomach tightened. Something was off. I reached one from Vera's birthday party last fall. I remembered standing beside the cake, holding the sparkler candles. But in this version, there was only Vera, glowing and centered, and someone else holding the tray. Not me. My face, gone. I clicked faster. The Christmas at Grandpa's. The mountain hike. The wedding rehearsal where I gave a toast. I should have been there. I was there. And yet, in each frame, my body had been cleanly cut, backgrounds reworked with eerie precision. A sweater sleeve where my arm had been. A drink hovering oddly without a hand. Shadows that didn't match the people. I wasn't just cropped out. I had been surgically erased. Then a message notification popped up in the thread. Vera, looks lovely. Streamlined. Streamlined. What a word. A polite way of saying, we removed what didn't fit the aesthetic. In other words, me. I sat back, breath shaky. Then I opened our family's shared Google Drive. I hadn't used it in years. There, in a section called Family Tree Roles, I expected some genealogical list or contact sheet. But what I found instead was a tidy structure, names grouped in generations, complete with birthdays, photos, and descriptions. Harold Adair. Vera Adair. Isolde Vaughn. Callum Adair. Even the pets, Poppy the Labradoodle, Mittens the cat, were listed with icons and affectionate captions. I scrolled carefully. My name? Nowhere. Not even a blank placeholder. I had been deleted with the same nonchalance as clearing out an old shopping list. I sat frozen, the room suddenly colder. My fingers curled slowly into fists. My own place in the family's history, gone, as though I had never drawn breath alongside them. As if I had never held Vera's hair back after too many drinks, or helped Isolde write her college essay, or driven Dad to his doctor's appointment when Mom couldn't. That erasure was deliberate. Cold. Comprehensive. I closed the laptop with a sharp click. My reflection caught faintly in the screen, a reminder that I was still here. Still real. I needed something to ground me. I grabbed my phone and opened the latest voicemail. It was from Aaron, an old college friend, unexpected. Hey, Taryn. Just saw the Polaris listing on Tech today. Holy hell, congrats, girl. You deserve every bit of this. Your family must be so proud. The words struck me like a punch to the gut. They didn't know. Not about Polaris. Not about the merger. Not about the billion-dollar valuation that would break on headlines the next day. They hadn't erased me because I was invisible. They did it because they couldn't control who I had become. I typed back quickly, they don't know. Not yet. Aaron replied with a fire emoji and a simple, then let the world tell them. Minutes later, my phone rang again. It was James, my CFO in New York. Final signatures are in. It's official. Polaris merges Friday. Are you sure about the time? 5:30 p.m. sharp, I replied without hesitation. He paused. That's the same time as the anniversary dinner, right? I smiled, slow and sure. Exactly. He exhaled. You're cold. No, I said calmly. I'm measured. Afterward, I wandered the city streets, letting the night air clear my head. Storefronts glittered with soft lighting and reflections. I passed a small art gallery tucked on the corner. A handwritten sign on the glass stopped me cold: people we pretend didn't exist. Inside, the exhibit was haunting. Blurred portraits. Cropped frames. Photos manipulated until people were just whispers on the canvas, eyeless, limbless, fading. One image held me, a family gathered in celebration, but a lone woman stood at the edge, nearly transparent. Only her eyes remained fully visible, locked in an expression that blended accusation and sorrow. That was me. That was what they tried to do to me. But unlike the woman in the painting, I had a voice. And receipts. I pulled out my phone, opened my private drive. Created a new folder, unedited. Then, with slow intention, I uploaded the original group photo, the one I had pulled from the old hard drive the night before. The one where I stood arm in arm with my siblings. The one before they rewrote the narrative. Caption: all of us. Before the edits. Before the forgetting. I hovered over the Send to Self button. Then tapped enter. I didn't need to confront them, not yet. My existence, my success, my refusal to disappear, that was the confrontation. And the timing? Impeccable. A slow smile tugged at my mouth. Sometimes, silence isn't surrender. Sometimes, silence is strategy. And when wielded with precision, it becomes the loudest sound in the room. Outside, the city kept pulsing, unaware. But inside, within me, something had shifted, resolved. They could try to erase me from pictures, documents, memories. But I remembered everything. And I had no intention of staying forgotten. The morning light was soft, almost too gentle to trust. It filtered through the blinds like a hesitant apology, brushing against the pale walls with a kind of quiet grace. I opened my eyes, slow and heavy, as if waking up would mean stepping back into the weight I had momentarily forgotten in sleep. The photo I'd restored, one I'd spent hours carefully repairing, color correcting, brushing away time's fingerprints, lay face down on the desk, its presence unacknowledged. I sat up in bed, pulling the sheet over my legs like armor. The stillness of the room pressed in around me. No birdsong, no traffic yet, just the low hum of pipes and distant murmurs of a city stirring. A still life of solitude. In the kitchen, I flicked the switch on the kettle and watched steam rise like ghosts. The scent of burnt toast from the day before still clung to the corners of the air. I hadn't had the energy to cook properly. Just like I hadn't had the energy to answer my phone the night before when it rang twice, both times Aunt Marla. She always called early, as if the dawn might make her conscience clearer. My phone chimed again. Aunt Marla. Her name bloomed on the screen like an old bruise. I stared for a moment, then picked it up. Hey, honey, she said brightly, too brightly. Just checking, you're still not coming? There it was. Not even a question, really. More of a confirmation. Her tone was polished, rehearsed. Soft enough to be sweet, careful enough to avoid accountability. I swallowed hard. Still not invited, I replied, calm but cold. There was a pause. A fraying at the edges of her voice. Oh well, they said you were busy. That you couldn't make it. So, we understood. Of course they did. That was their specialty, pre-written narratives. I let a beat pass, then said quietly, they told me something different. The silence that followed was thick. And in that silence, I heard everything she couldn't say. I heard the guilt she hadn't earned, the complicity she wouldn't claim. I'm sorry, she murmured at last, barely audible. But I didn't take it. I hung up. Not in anger. In exhaustion. I poured coffee and sat by the window. The warmth of the mug grounded me as I opened the family thread in my inbox. Vera's email gleamed at the top, happy holidays from the Adairs. The newsletter was sleek, elegant, like everything Vera did. I clicked through it. Page after page of polished family moments. Callum holding a wine glass at a vineyard. Isolde laughing at some gala, her diamond earrings catching the light. Vera and Dad arm in arm beside a golden retriever I didn't know they had. Quotes about gratitude and legacy were pasted between each photo like captions in a curated exhibit. I searched for myself. Nothing. Not a single frame. Not a single word. I wasn't even mentioned as someone who couldn't be with us this year. It was as though I'd never existed in their timeline. Beneath the newsletter, comments trickled in from friends and extended family. Such a shining family. So beautiful. Goals. Blessed to know you all. I saved the file. Von_Adair_family_newsletter.pdf. Then I closed it. I needed to breathe. I slipped on a coat and walked down to the plaza near my apartment. The air was crisp, scented faintly with jasmine and car exhaust. Pink petals drifted from the trees, catching in the corners of shop windows. On one corner, a photography studio displayed glossy portraits in their glass front, family after family, dressed in soft tones, smiles frozen in coordinated perfection. One portrait caught my eye, 6 people posed before a velvet backdrop. A father with salt and pepper hair, a radiant mother, and their grown children with partners, arms around each other like links in an unbroken chain. I stood in front of it, watching the reflection of myself overlap theirs. A ghost. A whisper. Not part of the frame. They built the image they wanted. I just never fit. I walked home, slower this time. Back in my apartment, I dug out a folder of old photographs from under the bed. Among them was one from Vera's wedding 3 years ago. I had taken the photo, at her request. She'd handed me the camera before the ceremony and said, "You're good at catching moments." Moments. Not being in them. I remembered Callum leaning over during the reception and whispering, "We'll crop you out if you stand there." I'd laughed then. Nervously. I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. I had been erased long before this week. Lunch passed without flavor, without appetite. My apartment felt like a mausoleum of forgotten ties and unsent emails. Mid-afternoon, Aunt Marla sent me another message. Just an image this time, the anniversary portrait. They'd done it, taken the photo without me. I opened the image. 12 people arranged like royalty before a marble fireplace. Gowns. Pearls. Suits. Everyone smiling in symmetrical lines. I scanned each face. No gap where I would have stood. No sign that anyone had even paused to ask where I was. The caption at the bottom. Couldn't be prouder of this family. I held the phone in my hand for a long moment, thumb hovering. But I didn't tap. Evening came slowly, the sky turning a dusty lavender outside my window. I sat at my vanity, staring at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me was not broken, but she was tired. Tired of being polite. Tired of editing herself out. I leaned forward, voice low and certain. "If you don't exist in their story," I whispered, "you write your own." I opened my laptop. Subject line. Friday. 5:30, go live. The cursor blinked on the empty email draft like a metronome of intention. I didn't hesitate. I hit schedule, then sat back and watched the screen fade into the still glow of my monitor. The email was queued, timestamped, irrevocable. For a moment, the silence in my apartment felt like applause, muted but satisfying. Then the quiet turned heavy, like I'd sealed a fate I wasn't sure I wanted. There was still time to stop it. There always is, before the first domino falls. But I didn't move my cursor. The rain had come back, brushing faint streaks against the window. I closed the laptop, leaned back, and tried to let my breathing even out. That's when my phone lit up with a name I hadn't expected, Mom. I hesitated before answering, let it ring twice. My thumb hovered, then pressed. Taryn, her voice came through smooth, too rehearsed. "Your cousin told me you were upset." "Upset?" I repeated softly. "Or erased." A pause. "Oh, come on now. Don't make this into something it's not. It's not personal, it's just easier this way." There it was. That phrase again. Easier this way. That was the family creed. Anything inconvenient was removed, swept under a rug woven with forced smiles and Christmas cards. "Easier for who?" I asked. "For everyone," she replied without missing a beat. "These events, people ask questions, and you know how things get complicated." I laughed, quietly, though it didn't sound amused. "Right. Heaven forbid someone remembers you have 3 kids." She sighed. "Taryn, this tone, after all we've done for you." "Stop," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I didn't ask you to do anything for me. I just asked to be seen." There was a short intake of breath on the other end. Then, like always, she tried to pivot, to guilt me back into submission. But before she could, I hit end call. For the first time in years, I hung up first. The silence after was sharp, almost metallic. I stood in my kitchen, heart racing, but underneath the rush was something steadier, relief. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was something like it. Later that evening, I was chopping vegetables for dinner when the phone rang again. Aunt Genevieve this time. Her voice trembled even before she spoke. "Sweetheart, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I know it's wrong, how they treat you." I set down the knife. "Then why won't anyone say anything?" She hesitated. "Because your dad can be difficult. You know that." "Difficult?" I said, sharper than intended. "He rewrites me out of existence." She let out a brittle sigh. "Taryn, I'm scared. When he's angry, he makes everyone feel so small." I swallowed. "You think I don't know that feeling?" The line went quiet except for her quiet sob. I wanted to comfort her, but the truth was, I was done making other people comfortable with my erasure. We said goodbye soon after, and I stared at my reflection in the window. The city lights were soft behind me, but my face looked hard, older somehow. That night, while scrolling absent-mindedly through photos on my phone, one stopped me cold, my 18th birthday. I'd taken it myself, in my old bedroom, with a slice of store-bought cake from the corner shop. No balloons, no candles, just a cheap paper plate and a single flame. That same night, my brother Callum had posted on Facebook, "Family night. Love these moments." He'd tagged everyone. Everyone except me. It was a strange thing, realizing your family could forget you while living under the same roof. But even stranger was how easy it became for them afterward. Once you erase someone once, it gets easier the next time. I turned off my phone, finished my wine, and tried to shake the memory. But ghosts don't leave when you ask nicely, they linger. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. The rain had stopped, and light was streaming through the blinds. My coffee steamed on the table beside my laptop. I opened the family group chat, against my better judgment, and saw the messages flying. Isolde, table arrangements finalized. Mom, make sure Callum's speech comes before the slideshow. Dad, everything needs to stay on schedule. I stared at the text box for a long time before typing, "If you ignore me Saturday, don't call me Sunday." I sent it. No emojis. No dramatics. The dots appeared for a moment, Vera is typing, then vanished. Nothing followed. I sat there, phone in hand, heartbeat loud in my ears. It wasn't disappointment anymore, it was confirmation. They wouldn't reply because acknowledging me meant admitting guilt. As the day stretched, I threw myself into work. There were press drafts to review, media releases to check, final numbers to verify. It helped to focus on what was real, what I'd built with my own hands. By evening, I had almost forgotten the message. The city outside my window glowed with that half-light between day and night when everything feels like it's holding its breath. Then my inbox pinged. It was an email from Nathaniel Brooks, CEO of the company acquiring mine. Subject line, "Friday, ready to make history?" The first line read, "Your story will inspire millions. You've built something extraordinary, Taryn. The world deserves to see it." I reread the line several times. Not my parents, not my siblings, not my so-called family legacy. My story. I leaned back in my chair. The glow of the screen illuminated the room. I could hear my mother's voice echo faintly in my head, "It's not personal, it's just easier this way." I whispered back to the empty room, "It's about to get a lot harder." I stood, walked to the balcony, and opened the sliding door. The air was cool, clean after the rain. Down below, the city pulsed, alive, indifferent, honest. I stayed there until the last traces of daylight vanished. The truth was simple, they'd erased me for years. But this time, I'd written myself back in, with ink they couldn't wash away. The morning light crawled slowly across my apartment, soft and indifferent. I hadn't slept much. The city had grown quieter overnight, as if holding its breath before something irreversible. My laptop screen glowed faintly on the kitchen counter, the last line of the CEO's email still open. "Your story will inspire millions." For years, I'd tried to be invisible, to make peace with the silence my family fed me. But now, this message, this moment, it was more than recognition. It was a blade. Not one to wound, but to cut free. I poured coffee into a chipped mug, the one I'd bought at a thrift store when I first moved out of my parents' house. The same one Mom once called sad-looking. I smirked. She'd never understood how much beauty could live in something imperfect. The phone buzzed. A notification from social media. My cousin's post read, "So proud of our family's tech genius. Innovation runs in our blood." A rush of irritation flooded my chest. Then I saw the comment beneath it, "My mother's. That's Kenneth's project, right? He's always been brilliant." I scrolled down. Dozens of replies applauding him, congratulating my brother. My name wasn't mentioned once. Not even a passing nod. I stared at the phone until the screen dimmed. Then, with deliberate calm, I set it face down on the counter. Let them have their fantasy for now. That evening, I attended a local business gala, quietly, anonymously. The event was hosted at the downtown Hyatt Ballroom, where the chandeliers shimmered like stars trapped in glass. I stood near the back, blending in among the suits and sequins, nursing a glass of club soda. Kenneth was there, of course, laughing too loud, shaking hands too eagerly. My family had always adored his charisma, the kind that filled every space, even when it was empty. When the host took the stage to announce the Innovation in Tech award, I already knew. My palms went cold. This year's winner, the host said, smiling wide, Kenneth Adair, for his groundbreaking work with Polaris Analytics. Applause erupted. Cameras flashed. I blinked hard, steadying myself. My work. My algorithms. My sleepless nights. My creation. Kenneth took the stage, adjusted the mic, and smiled that smooth, corporate smile. "This award," he began, "belongs to the entire Adair family. We've always believed in excellence." I almost laughed. He wasn't wrong, just selective about who counted as family. People clapped louder when Vera stood up, beaming, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "That's my boy," she said to the woman next to her. "He's worked so hard." I felt my pulse climb. I didn't cry, didn't move. I just watched. My silence, once their weapon, was now my armor. The ceremony continued, background noise blurring until I caught my phone vibrating in my clutch. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered softly. "Ms. Adair," a crisp voice said. "This is Margaret Reynolds, CEO of Titan Global." My breath caught. She was the Margaret Reynolds, billionaire investor, industry legend. "I just wanted to personally congratulate you," she continued. "The acquisition announcement is beautiful. Everyone's talking about your leadership. You deserve this, Taryn." My throat tightened. I whispered, "Thank you, Margaret." Then, before I could pull the phone away, the host's mic picked up her next words, echoing across the hall. "By the way," Margaret said brightly, "your company's story is remarkable. I had no idea you were related to Kenneth Adair. I hope your family is proud." The entire ballroom froze. Heads turned toward me. Conversations died mid-sentence. For a long second, I heard nothing but the clink of someone setting down a champagne glass. Kenneth's face drained of color. My mother looked confused, mouth opening and closing without sound. Then a whisper rippled through the crowd. "She's the founder? Wait, she built Polaris?" Kenneth never mentioned a sister. I ended the call quietly, slipped the phone into my purse, and straightened my shoulders. I didn't stay to watch their reactions unfold. I simply walked out. No dramatic exit, no storm of tears. Just the steady click of my heels across marble floors. Outside, the cold air hit my face like clarity. I didn't smile. I wasn't triumphant. I was just done pretending, done shrinking to fit their comfort. Behind me, I heard hurried footsteps. Kenneth's voice chased after me. "Taryn." I stopped at the edge of the parking lot. The streetlight threw both our shadows across the asphalt, his reaching, mine still. He came closer, jaw tight. "Why would you do that? Why would you humiliate me like that?" I turned slowly. "I didn't say a word, Kenneth. The truth humiliated you." His mouth opened, then shut again. I could see it in his eyes, rage tangled with fear. Because deep down, he knew it was over. The facade, the false legacy, the lie that had kept him above me all these years, it had cracked. "You don't understand what you've done," he hissed. "I understand perfectly," I said, stepping closer. "You stole from me. But it's fine. You can keep the trophy. I'll keep the company." He blinked, stunned. I turned, walked away, and didn't look back. By the time I reached my car, my hands had stopped shaking. The engine purred to life, headlights slicing through the darkness. The radio came on mid-song, a familiar ballad about starting over. I almost laughed. When I got home, the city was quiet again. I toed off my heels, set my purse on the counter, and walked straight to the desk where my laptop waited. I opened the draft email I'd written days ago. The subject line glowed against the dark screen: "Who really built Polaris Analytics?" I scrolled through the attachments: proof, records, timestamps, patents. Everything they'd tried to bury. My finger hovered over the send button. The cursor blinked, patient, steady. I could almost hear my mother's voice again, soft and brittle. "It's just easier this way." Not anymore. I clicked save draft instead of sending. Not yet. I wanted them to sweat first. Let them feel what it was like to wait for something inevitable. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. The night outside stretched endless and quiet, but it didn't feel empty anymore. If they wanted a polished lie, they should have prepared for the raw truth. I stared at the screen long after hitting save draft. The cursor blinked at me like a pulse, steady and unrelenting, as the city outside my window sank into dusk. The skyline blurred behind glass, golden streaks of sunset folding into a deeper violet. Inside, my apartment was silent, too silent. I could hear my own breath, the quiet tick of the wall clock, the faint hum of the refrigerator. And yet, in my chest, a storm churned. Then I inhaled, held it, and exhaled, slow and controlled. My finger hovered for a moment longer. And then, I hit send. Silence shattered. Within minutes, notifications buzzed through my phone like a swarm. I hadn't expected it to spread so quickly. Headlines surged across the digital ether, pouring into inboxes and timelines like a tidal wave. My name, the name they had buried for years, was suddenly everywhere. Woman behind billion-dollar tech deal steps out of the shadows. Polaris Analytics, meet the hidden genius, Taryn Adair. Sister overshadowed by family now owns the spotlight. Slideshow after slideshow surfaced, boardroom shots, candid photos, Polaris branding behind me on stages. And that name they never said out loud at family gatherings? It flashed bold on every platform, Taryn Adair. I sat frozen on the edge of my kitchen stool, coffee untouched on the counter. I tapped a video someone had clipped from a tech conference I barely remembered. I was on stage, blazer pressed, voice steady but soft. "Build your value quietly. Let it echo loudly." It echoed, all right. The quote went viral. Comments flooded in. She worked while they ignored her. Finally, a woman who didn't need to yell to be heard. Her family must feel pretty stupid right now. The strange thing was, I hadn't posted any of this to humiliate them. That was never the point. It wasn't about vengeance. It was about breathing again. About lifting the lid off the boiling pot before it exploded. But sometimes, truth breaks things. By mid-afternoon, I couldn't sit still. I traded my yoga pants for a black pantsuit and slipped into heels. No makeup. No need. Truth didn't need dressing up. I drove out of the city, toward the country club where Vera and Kenneth were hosting their anniversary gala, an event I'd been specifically uninvited from. "Too much attention on you," they'd said. "Let's keep the focus on the family." Tonight, the focus was on the family. Just not the way they'd imagined. I arrived early. The sun was fading behind the hills, casting long golden shadows across the manicured driveway. Palm trees swayed in the evening breeze as lights twinkled to life, glowing against the luxury cars pulling in. The valet looked at me, head tilting as though trying to place me. I gave him a nod and stepped inside. The marble-floored lobby gleamed. Chandeliers sparkled overhead, the air perfumed with money and legacy. Inside the lounge, laughter floated over the clinking of glasses. Socialites and business associates swirled in tailored suits and designer gowns. Vera stood near the bar, radiant in a champagne-colored dress, surrounded by a sea of admirers. Kenneth was nearby, laughing in that smug, exaggerated way he always used when talking about himself. I paused at the entrance. And that's when the televisions turned on. Dozens of sleek wall-mounted screens blinked to life, all tuned to different networks, but one story played on every channel. A banner rolled across the bottom. Breaking, Polaris Analytics acquired for $1.1 billion, meet CEO Taryn Adair. Every conversation ceased. Glasses halted mid-air. Heads turned. My name, my story, my face, right there, at their perfect little party. The anchor's voice filled the room. "Tonight we shine a spotlight on the woman behind the revolution in data analytics, Taryn Adair, founder and CEO of Polaris Analytics." Another shot, Margaret Reeves, my mentor, smiling in a pre-recorded interview. She's the kind of leader you don't see coming, and when she arrives, you can't look away. Fierce. Strategic. Unapologetic. I scanned the room. Faces drained of color. One woman near the buffet squinted, whispered loudly to her friend, "Wait, isn't that Vera's daughter?" Her voice cracked with disbelief. Someone else murmured, "Why wasn't she invited?" Another voice, low, sharp, cut through, "They hid her." I stood frozen, but not from fear. From stillness. The kind that comes before transformation. Kenneth's smile had vanished. Vera's hand gripped her clutch tightly. Her lips parted, jaw trembling. The cracks had begun. The porcelain family image was crumbling in real time. A man at the back laughed dryly. Guess they celebrated the wrong child. The silence afterward wasn't empty, it was loaded. Judging. Questioning. Remembering. My mother looked at me then. Her eyes locked with mine, and I saw it. Not regret. Not love. Just the raw, exposed panic of someone losing control. And for the first time in years, I felt taller. Seen. My phone buzzed in my hand. Text from Margaret. "Ready for your one-on-one? You're trending one globally." Then a voicemail. I hesitated before pressing play. My father's voice filled my ear. Rough. Hesitant. "Taryn, we need to talk. Please." There it was. Not warmth. Not reconciliation. Just the first tremor of the tower they built collapsing. I slid the phone back into my clutch. No smile. No tears. Just a breath. Then I turned toward the exit, heels clicking against the marble, echoing through the stunned silence. People parted like a tide, unsure whether to greet me, stop me, or simply watch me go. I kept walking, every step weighted in dignity. No speeches. No drama. No revenge. Just the truth, unapologetic and undeniable, walking out the door. It took the world to see me before my own family ever did. And that was enough. It took the world to see me, before my own family ever did. That thought echoed in my mind as I walked through the quiet streets later that night, heels clicking against the wet pavement. The city shimmered with neon reflections, alive with noise and possibility. My phone buzzed in my pocket every few seconds, notifications, headlines, mentions. I ignored them. For now, silence was sweeter than applause. But by dawn, there was no silence left. I woke to the sound of my phone vibrating across the nightstand, the faint hum growing into a steady rhythm. Half asleep, I reached for it, eyes narrowing against the blue light. A headline flashed across the screen. Taryn Adair's speech from college resurfaces, internet falls in love with her words. A video played automatically, me, 15 years younger, standing nervously behind a wooden podium at my graduation. My voice, calm but steady, filled the screen. "Success doesn't have to shout," I said in that recording. "It just has to last." The clip was barely 30 seconds long, yet somehow it had set the internet on fire. Millions of views, thousands of comments. I scrolled through a few, heart-thudding. This is why you never underestimate the quiet one. Imagine being her family and pretending she didn't exist. She's the real deal. Someone had paired the video with the business headline from the night before. The contrast was striking, an earnest, idealistic girl speaking about purpose, cut to footage of the billion-dollar deal signing. I watched it twice, then set the phone down. The world was connecting the dots my family had spent decades erasing. By midday, the storm had spread beyond social media. Reporters camped outside the country club, waiting for quotes, hunting for statements. Kenneth was ambushed first, caught leaving in his overpriced suit and trademark grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Adair," a reporter shouted. "Did you know your sister was the founder of Polaris Analytics?" He froze. Cameras flashed. His PR smile wavered. We're a very supportive family," he stammered. "We always believed in her work." The journalist pressed. "So why wasn't she credited?" He blinked, mouth opening but no sound coming. The footage spread online within an hour. By evening, it had been remixed into memes, dubbed over with sarcastic captions, "Supportive family energy" and "We always believed in her" somewhere off camera. Mom tried a different strategy. At 6 p.m., she went live on Facebook. Her background was carefully arranged, flowers, lighting, the good pearls. She looked poised, but her hands fidgeted. Hello everyone, she began, voice sweetly controlled. There's been a misunderstanding. Of course we're very proud of our daughter. We just wanted to protect her privacy. The comments section exploded instantly. So your daughter made $1 billion and you didn't invite her? Protect her privacy? From what, family dinners? Lady, stop lying. Her composure faltered halfway through. People twist things online, she insisted, but the chat scrolled mercilessly, line after line of disbelief. When the clip was over, her reputation had taken the same beating she once wished upon mine. I didn't feel glee. Just inevitability. Later that night, while I sat at a quiet bar near the waterfront, nursing a glass of ginger ale, my phone buzzed again, this time with a direct message request. It was a photo from someone who'd attended the gala. The image showed an older gentleman in a tailored navy suit, one of the major investors from the event. In the photo, he was standing before my mother, handing her a small white business card. The caption read. He said, and I quote, "Your daughter is a visionary. You might want to get out of her way." I exhaled slowly, eyes on the city lights rippling across the bay. There was something poetic about that, the powerful finally recognizing the one they'd tried to ignore. The message was followed by another from Margaret, the CEO who had believed in me from the start. Proud doesn't even begin to cover it. You've earned every word. I typed back, thank you. You have no idea what that means. She replied instantly, actually, I think I do. And then, as if summoned by the universe's sense of irony, my phone rang again. The caller ID, Mom. I considered letting it ring, but something in me wanted to hear the tone, what it sounded like when guilt finally found a voice. Taryn, she said when I answered. Her voice trembled. We were wrong. We were so wrong. Please believe me, we didn't mean to hurt you. I stared out at the water, expression unreadable. You meant to hide me, I said quietly. You just didn't expect the world to find me. She started crying. Real tears this time, not the performative kind she reserved for charity galas. Your father can't sleep. Kenneth's devastated. I laughed softly. They're not devastated, Mom. They're embarrassed. A pause. Then, barely above a whisper, can we fix this? I closed my eyes, letting the question hang in the space between us. You can start, I said finally, by telling the truth. Out loud. Not for me, for yourself. She didn't respond, only sobbed quietly until the line went dead. A few minutes later, Kenneth texted. You should have told us. I stared at the words for a long time before typing back. You never asked. That night, I went home and recorded a video. No filters, no studio lights, just me, sitting cross-legged on the couch. I looked straight into the camera and spoke in a voice that didn't tremble anymore. This isn't revenge, I said. This is me living free. I paused, thinking of all the years I'd whispered instead of spoken. Never let shame be the filter they use to dim your worth. You're not hard to love. You were just standing in a room too small for your truth. I uploaded it without hashtags, without captions. Just a clean slate. By morning, it had over 12 million views. My mother's Facebook was gone. Kenneth had made his account private. The world had already drawn its conclusion. Somewhere, my family sat in that same living room where I used to feel invisible. I imagined the silence between them, heavy, suffocating, the kind that made even the air taste like regret. Meanwhile, I stood barefoot on my balcony, coffee steaming in my hands. The Pacific stretched endlessly before me, gold with sunrise. I turned off my phone, slid it aside, and smiled, not wide, but certain. They chose to erase me, I whispered, the wind carrying my words out to sea. I chose to be unforgettable. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's just choosing freedom over fury. The first rays of dawn filtered through my window like a soft promise. The sea, still slick from last night's storm, stretched out beyond the glass, restless but oddly serene, as though the sky and ocean had come to a quiet understanding. Everything looked the same, yet nothing was. Not anymore. I sat at the edge of my bed, phone turned face down on the nightstand. No buzzing, no messages, no apologies. And I wasn't expecting any. I wasn't waiting for a reply. I was waiting for peace. The kind that doesn't come from anyone else's words, but the stillness you make for yourself after the fire has burned through every lie. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's not a clean slate, and it's not weakness. It's choosing freedom over fury. It's walking away without dragging the weight of someone else's choices behind you. By mid-morning, my name was everywhere. TV anchors were slicing up the family drama like it was sport. Not just because of the billions, but because I had touched something deeper. Something raw. Their segment was titled, "The Quiet Sideline Daughter, Truth Beneath the Wealth." Panels of experts speculated on inheritance, emotional abuse, power dynamics, legal implications. Comment threads exploded like wildfire. "She finally said what so many of us feel, your family didn't deserve you, she stood up with class, not cruelty." Strangers saw me more clearly than my own blood ever did. A prominent talk show host invited me to appear on her network. Emails came in rapid waves. Voicemails from producers. Requests from publishers. Everyone wanted a piece of my story, on their terms. But I didn't respond. I wasn't interested in their curated redemption arc, the kind that wraps up neatly for ratings. I would speak, on my time, in my voice, and not for their spectacle. In the late afternoon, I received word from a former family staffer. My father had locked himself in his home office for hours. He'd been sitting alone, staring at the wall of meticulously framed family portraits, the curated gallery that told the story he wanted the world to believe. The same wall I was erased from. But that day, he reached for a dusty frame that had been replaced years ago. Inside it had been a photoshopped version of a family vacation, me edited out, like I never existed. He opened the back, hands shaking, and slipped the original photo in, the one with my sunburnt smile and wind-tangled hair. He pressed the glass closed with trembling fingers and whispered into the room, "I should have been braver." No one answered him. That's what shame does, it silences the powerful. Kenneth, too, felt the unraveling. One of his biggest clients, known for their ethical investing stance, pulled out of a major partnership. His PR team scrambled, releasing a vague statement about respecting personal boundaries and distancing from past misstatements regarding family privilege. That night, he left me a voicemail. His voice was low, grainy. "You win," he said. "I get it now." There was smoke behind the words, resignation, maybe even grief, but it came too late. I listened once, not out of spite, but to understand. Then I erased it. Some chapters you don't reread. Later that evening, a letter arrived by courier. From my mother. The handwriting was unmistakable. I held the envelope for a long time, its weight heavier than it looked. Inside were 6 pages of confessions. Of regret. Of memories twisted by fear and pride. "I spent so long trying to prove you wrong," she wrote, "when all you ever did was prove me right." I read it under the lamplight, every word like an echo from the past. A single tear fell, but I didn't call. I didn't need more explanations. Sometimes, closure doesn't shout. Sometimes, it just quietly shuts a door and lets you walk away. That night, I sat at my desk and opened a new file, the Unspoken Daughters Project. It would be a foundation, my foundation, to support women who had been silenced by their families. Mentorship. Legal aid. Storytelling grants. A platform for those whose names had been erased, whose voices had been softened into nothing. I opened a voice recording app, stared at the blinking red dot, and spoke. "We're not broken. We were just never given the space to be whole. But that ends now." I saved the file, not to post yet, but because some beginnings are worth preparing for with care. Just before midnight, I stepped outside and walked barefoot to the coast. The wind still carried salt and storm, but the air was open. Liberated. Waves slammed the rocks with power, not anger. The moon laid a ribbon of silver across the water, as if offering a path forward, shimmering and uncertain, but mine to take. I thought of little Taryn, the girl I used to be. Quiet in the corners, shrunken by disapproval, waiting for scraps of love that never came freely. I closed my eyes and whispered to her, "You were never lost. They just never looked hard enough." I watched my reflection in the wet sand, solid, centered, whole. I didn't flinch at the woman staring back. I never returned to the house. Never joined another family gathering. I let them keep their edited albums, their porcelain smiles, their tradition-bound pride. But I left behind something more powerful than revenge, truth, spoken in full. And in every way that matters, I never left. Sometimes, the people who are supposed to love us the most are the very ones who try to dim our light. But silence isn't always surrender, sometimes, it's the most powerful way to gather strength. This story reminds us, recognition from others is fleeting, but but self-worth is permanent. Have you ever felt unseen by the ones you call family? What did you do? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice might resonate with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe